Welcome, everybody. My name is Scott Zackheim, General Partner at Landmark Ventures. Quick background on Landmark for those who are first-timers to one of our events. We are a deal-making platform based out of New York. What that means is we're connectors. We've built out fantastic networks and Rolodexes over the last 20 years, and we drive business outcomes, deal flow, deals across the globe. We do it in three ways via our lines of business. We do investment banking within Landmark. We do tons of events like these, and then we also do business development advisory. That's where I sit as a partner, oversee our digital marketing tech practice, and work with a fantastic work of digital marketing and media leaders, as well as a portfolio of fantastic digital tech companies who we help grow via our network. We play as a matchmaker. We drive business outcomes and deal flow between the emerging tech space and the enterprise. With that, it's great to have you all listening in. We are here to talk about engaging the at-home buyer, aka everybody these days, strategies to improve conversion. We have a fantastic panel, and so I want to welcome them in. Scott Lux, I guess I should say, because I'm Scott too. So Scott L, Dorian, and Nitsan. We have a lot to dig into, and so I want to give you guys an opportunity to introduce yourselves. I also want to give a special shout out to our friends at Wevo who helped facilitate and partner with us on this particular panel. But why don't we start with Dorian? You can kick us off. Just tell us about your relatively new gig at ManyChat, what you guys do, and then we'll do a whip around and jump into questions.
Yeah, sounds great. Thanks, Scott. So I'm Dorian Kiespe. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for ManyChat. ManyChat's a young company. We're a marketing automation and chatbot platform that is changing how small businesses talk to their customers. We have over 1 million users worldwide, but really focusing on 500,000 small businesses, bypass the inefficient channels like email marketing and bring the convenience of messenger products that you enjoy in your personal life, but bring that into the business consumer communication. That's a high level of what we do.
Fantastic. Scott, also in a pretty new role, why don't you tell us about what you're doing over at Theory?
Sure. So I lead our digital and e-commerce for Theory and Helmut Lang. And for those of you that may not be familiar with Theory, we sell direct to consumer as well as through wholesale and specialty retail. I'm also an adjunct professor for omnichannel retail up at Columbia University. And then prior to joining Theory, I ran digital and e-commerce at Intermix, which is a Gap Inc. brand.
And Nitsan, the last word on our intros.
Okay, Scott, thanks so much for putting this together. And Scott, Dorian, looking forward to a good conversation together today. So Nitsan Sher, CEO and co-founder of Wevo, fourth startup. Wevo is focused on helping digital marketers pinpoint why it is that more people are not converting on their websites. In this day and age, more than ever before, understanding user behavior, understanding why people aren't going to the next step of the purchase funnel is key to many digital marketers. We service many of the Fortune 500 companies, MasterCard, Fidelity, and Wells Fargo, and others. And most of the work is done both on live websites, but a unique capability of Wevo is to test and optimize new campaigns, new websites before they even go live. So basically, we shorten that very long period of traditional iteration on a website that takes months, sometimes even more than that, into the period of before launching it. And that way, when a campaign launches, when a website launches, when a new product launches, it starts at a much higher level of conversion. So it's really about understanding customer behavior, pinpointing why they don't convert, and delivering a much better experience to users from day one.
So perfect segue into our first question. We have a lot of folks, they're home, they are shopping. We've seen all sorts of numbers about e-commerce carrying the day for all sorts of brands. Maybe we'll start with you, Scott. In terms of smartly engaging, but to Nitsan's point, converting site visitors, what are you guys seeing? What are you doing differently? Are there ways that you are taking an approach for around optimization that might be different now than, say, 10 weeks ago?
Yeah, I would say it's been a interesting journey, because I think when COVID-19 first started, retailers such as Theory, we were a little bit cautious because we wanted to make sure we weren't really clear on how receptive to the consumer they would actually be to marketing and outreach in the very early days. So we kind of held back a bit and took a wait and see approach. The next thing we did is we mobilized our teams to make sure, excuse me, that all of our messaging was really on point and on brand, and just heightened awareness and sensitivity to how we were communicating with our customer. And keeping in mind that was primarily through digital. So once we kind of cleared that hurdle, then we started ramping back up our outreach through email. One of the other pivots we made is to leverage our store team, because once we started to see some traction and receptiveness of our consumer to purchase and engage with us, our store team started to do clienteling and outreach to their customer base. And we were kind of surprised, to be honest with you. A lot of customers appreciated the outreach. They were glad to hear from their store associate that they'd worked with. So we started to build some momentum and traction there, and educating some of the customers how they could buy online. We gave them unique discount codes, early access. So trying to migrate some of those customers that may not have bought online frequently, or in some cases only worked with their associate, to get them more comfortable with buying online. So that was kind of that final customer iteration. On the site, we started to optimize based on selling. So instead of just doing a very, what I feel like may have become a little bit cliched now is, out of office or work from home, where we built out categorization and merchandised our site for what we saw were top sellers. We still saw that people were buying core Theory, but at the same time, we wanted to make sure they had easy access to items that were more well-suited to wearing while working from home. And then we started to get a little more playful with our creative. It's still Friday, you should still dress up, those types of things as time went on.
So Nitsan, for some of your clients, maybe not traditional direct consumer in terms of apparel, big banks, universities, how have you seen some of their pivoting over the last couple of months?
We've actually engaged with a large number of digital marketers, both our clients and others, over the past few weeks, as there's so many changes afoot right now. And you start with the changes in consumers. It's interesting to note, and as Scott was describing, beyond the change we're seeing now, which is a short term, we should also be considering many of the habits that we're all getting used to now are going to last into the long term as well. There's a recent survey that was put out by GWI on coronavirus, and they were talking about 26% of consumers say that they're going to be buying much more online after this is over as well. So what we're seeing amongst our customers, digital marketers, is the changes that they're making now, they're not thinking about it as a change for the next few weeks. They're thinking about it as a sea change that's going to lead their company forward into the future as well. They've been telling us a few things. First of all, they're under a lot of pressure from the CFO's office. As we all know, marketing budgets are being cut across the board for many companies. Many companies have shifted where they put their marketing dollars and what they do with them. We've seen drops in both offline and online, but obviously the drops in online have been much more moderated. But that pressure from the CFO's office is now determining or forcing digital marketers to be able to prove how far each one of the marketing dollars is going. Now, this trend has been on, this ROI trend has been on probably for the last 5-8 years. But now it's intensifying dramatically more. So what that is causing marketers to do is, one, is to invest in more tools that increase their efficiency online. It's causing them to de-risk some of their activities and not basically go out on campaigns that could be a failure, but rather try and optimize and make sure that the campaigns that they're launching are going to be a success. But maybe above all, the biggest trend that we're seeing amongst our customers, and again, mainly Fortune 500, but we bleed into Fortune 5000 as well, is the work they're doing to listen to their customers and to uncover what those needs are. We've seen just like it seems like every other week, you know, customer sentiment is shifting from the early fears of lockdown and virus to, and that sympathy discussion going on with a brand, to now going back to a new normal slowly but surely, and the reopening. So being very tuned in to what customer demand is what marketers are spending a lot more time on. And I think it's one of the reasons why we saw at Wevo, March and April being the highest usage months on record for the company, as they're using the platform to engage with their customers, get feedback, understand what's effective for them, and do all that optimization before going live.
Dorian, for you, you guys get granular, you get down and dirty with the customer in terms of having an ongoing dialogue. Has that shifted even more so now?
Absolutely. I mean, we have the luxury, right? We're global, so we have over 1 million users, but we have 500,000 small businesses, and each of them have been impacted differently because of the coronavirus, right? You had small businesses who used the platform for booking appointments, you know, for in-house services, and they are definitely suffering. But when it comes to the e-commerce category, you know, we have the ability to see active conversations on a weekly level, on a daily level. And we're seeing that since March, you're seeing this growth happen over time. So marketers are adapting, right? And they're realizing that like this is the new normal, and we don't know for how long. And, you know, there's a study that came out of the UK, the IAB, that, you know, and again, we're global, so we have to kind of look at every piece of data, but 70% of small business feel marketing is even more important than it was before. And when we look about how our platform works, we're a communication platform, right? We drive people from Facebook ads to Messenger to SMS to email. And what our customers want to do is have active conversations regardless of the medium. And again, bringing this convenience of messaging products that you have in your personal life, but on businesses. Small businesses are gravitating toward this, right? 87% of smartphones have messaging apps. Right, we have seen open rates of our customers' campaigns in the 80% range. We've seen CTRs in the 25% range, and it's kind of evolving into conversational design and how to have a conversation at scale with your customers, right? Where you could get information back from them, but also provide them value. So yeah, we're seeing in aggregate that marketers are adjusting. And going back to like what Scott said, right, about, you know, having the associate, the in-store associate, reach out to the customer, right, was huge, right? What Nizan said about, you know, learning more about what the customer needs and wants, right? This, you know, what we've learned from our platform is that all these small businesses, these individual marketers are doing the same thing, you know, maybe without all the resources they had like a year ago, but they're trying to make it work and learn as much as possible from the customer and have real conversations.
Great. Hey, before we jump to the next question, I just want to let the audience know, because I forgot to mention this before, we do have a Q&A for the last bunch of minutes together. So feel free to use the questions tool here in Zoom and send along your questions, and we'll try to get to as many as we can at the end of the conversation. I want to jump back to something that Scott Luck said around evolution of product, and maybe Nizan, you can lead off here, and then Scott, you can go behind him. Evolution of product being as important, if not more important, as evolution of message. It sounds like you at Theory, Scott, and others are evolving their products, changing the way they're approaching and engaging the customer. Nizan, your clients, how are they doing that? Do they have to kind of test those out before? Or are they just jumping in blind? Walk us through some of that process and maybe some of the success that you've seen as folks evolve their product quickly.
Yeah. Scott, I think you're raising a really important point over here. Just staying, looking, observing is a very dangerous strategy in these days as customer tastes, customer needs are rapidly shifting. And as we noted earlier, some of them are here to stay. Dorian raised a great point on that, the importance of that engagement and keeping a tap onto what it is that customers are looking for, and really it's changing by the week. I was just as we were going through this, we were looking through a recent survey that put 73% of marketers said that they're using now different creative for their ads than they used before the coronavirus. So there's a lot of shifts that are happening right now. I think what we've seen our clients do is, as they're thinking not just of shift in positioning, but also seeing how to tweak their pricing, and Scott mentioned this earlier, right, on the reductions in coupons to specific customers. But beyond shifts in pricing, it's what is it that customers need now more than they did before? I mean, we know that webcams, you can't even buy online anymore because they're completely sold out, right? So, but just one key example. As travel has gone down, as people are in their house more, there's much more tending to the home. There's different places where the budgets of travel used to be gone before that are being invested now. So what are the products that you have in line, or tweaks to existing products that you have can be made in order to better serve your customers? And we're seeing from our clients a lot of creativity, a lot of churn going on between those different ideas. And as they have to react quickly, what they're doing now is the reason we're seeing it is because they're using the Wevo platform to test out those ideas. So before fully developing a product, before fully developing a campaign, they'll put the scaffolding of that, or the initial, their draft hypothesis into Wevo. They'll test it in Wevo. Wevo will tell them, is this clear? Is this appealing? Is it credible? Do your customers believe it? What do they like and don't like about the content, the imagery? And with that idea, with that feedback, they can go back and either do another iteration or have the confidence that they can launch because, you know, we've put the stamp of approval that this is going to do well in market. So they're using the product, Scott, they're using our platform much more from that perspective to test out their new ideas, because they really, really do not want to launch duds in this time, but they're forced to change what they're doing. So there's a need to change, there's a need to take risk, but a very small appetite for risk in the market.
So just, Scott Lux, for you, what was your process like, and what does it continue to look like as you iterate and roll this stuff out?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple components. So one, we've talked a lot about just how things have changed. I wouldn't necessarily say they've changed. They've just been accelerated at a tremendous rate that we haven't seen before. So, you know, one of the questions I saw come through was about the role of store, digital. We were already thinking about that. However, we had maybe a 1 year to 18-month roadmap to accomplish what a customer-first journey looks like in both physical and digital. Now we're having to rethink that in 2 months as we bring stores back online. So I think that's one component, is putting, you know, really adopting that mindset of customer first, and what does that mean now in this blurred world of digital and physical? Because we do believe that customers will go back to stores, but it's going to be different. Maybe curbside, buy online pickup, it's all appointment based. And that changes that mindset, which could be good. It's a much more engaging experience. On the flip side, as we alluded to earlier, from an online shopping, one of the challenges I think fashion has always had is it's a little bit harder to buy online and browse like your fashion forward pieces. You may want to try them on, understand some of the detailing. So how do we bring a better experience online and provide that inspiration to a customer that they may have been looking for in store? And then I think the third piece is just looking at the economic reality and just understanding where spending behaviors are. Obviously, unemployment is very, very high. And for us, it's not so much that we'll alter our message, but we have to be cognizant of that and understanding what that means and how we communicate. And again, what I was saying at the beginning is just having that heightened sensitivity that everything we're putting out, we're looking at it and saying, does it, one, still feel on brand? Is it authentic? Because I think customers are looking for that authenticity from brands. They don't want someone that's just showed up and now acting differently. Two, to make sure that it is being sensitive to what we know is our core customer. And as we heard earlier, just taking in that constant feedback loop, which again, going back to our store associates, understanding and that reach out, what we're hearing from them, what they're appreciating in that contact. And then the last piece, I think, just leveraging data, as we mentioned earlier, to not so much minimize risk, but to just be more scientific on how we're targeting customers, what is the right cost of acquisition in this time, especially in a heavy promotional period. How do we start to pivot back to a full price environment? And how do we know if that's working and what the level of efficiency and cost that we can afford to do so? So those are probably the three areas we're looking at.
So Dorian, before I kick it to you, I want to really harp on Scott's second to last point in terms of brand cadence, because it's something that we talked about in our prep call, and I think you can speak to that and everyone else can chime in. I feel like as we move into second and third month of all of this, there's a bit of a debate in the market in terms of the cadence brands are taking, and maybe the notion of genuine, authentic, empathetic is starting to become trite real quickly for the customer. And the end consumer is sick of hearing the sappy music in their commercials. They actually want to be spoken to like customers and consumers used to be. They want to hear from the big brands about what they do best and hear it in the way that they've traditionally said it. And so I think there's a balance that needs to be created between being empathetic, but also being authentic to what the brand actually has done well traditionally, because the consumer, I can speak as a consumer, wants regular. We desire normal. So how do you strike that balance? And Dorian, as you guys engage, again, hand to hand with customers, what do you think the feeling on the ground is around that point?
On the ground, I would say, a little bit of feedback here, sorry. What I echo Scott said about acceleration and product acceleration and marketing tactics, and you're right, everyone hit the gas on promotion, right? So as a consumer, I was flooded with promotions from everybody. And at the same point, like we're seeing that with our customers as well, using promotion as a lever. That is over, that is kind of burned out. Re-engaging with the customer in different ways and different use cases is what you're starting to see emerge now. And I, as a consumer, I would like it a little bit. You're seeing it in the stats. Like people are tuning out the news. People don't want to hear the news anymore. Social media usage is up 1 to 2 hours per day for 30% of Americans right now, and people use social media for consumer inspiration, right? And so I think it is a challenge to figure out what is the right balance and what is the tone they have to deliver. The panic and the panic selling that we kind of saw is over. Nobody's looking for deals anymore. People are looking for normal and something new and refreshing. But yeah, it definitely is a challenge that I'm sure that Scott could probably speak about a little bit more, or even the design of what he's seen his customers do.
Nissan, why don't you jump in there, and then we'll let Scott have the final word on that.
Yeah, no, I think Scott brought up the point of authenticity from a brand, balancing that authentic voice while understanding what customers want in this very dynamic and changing environment will be key to the success moving forward. I think what many customers also say in one of the surveys that came out recently is that they're going to decide who to buy with post-COVID based on the behavior of the brand during COVID. And having that very well-tuned, good feedback loop going on between, hey, this is as a brand what I'm proposing. Is this, dear customer, what you wanted to hear? Does this resonate with you? Is this effective with you? We all learned it in Marketing 101, get customer feedback, but in this day and age, it's hard to do that quick turnaround. Which is why platforms like Dorian are seeing success this period of time. While I think usage of Wevo is going up in these times because it's mechanisms to get a very rapid loop of feedback with your customers which I think is going to be key to traverse this period of rapid change.
Scott, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I mean, promotions are tricky. I think it was twofold. One is just making sure that we had the right price point for our customers. The second piece that's challenging from an internal perspective is a lot of these brands, in our case, we had 2 out of our 3 revenue channels completely shut down. So wholesale, stores were closed in our own physical locations. So the other thing we're trying to do is minimize our impact in one, buying too much product, but making sure that we don't have too much inventory backup as well. So promotions were used twofold. One, to make sure we can actually have a viable path for that inventory so that we can actually make sure it got in the hands of our customers at a reasonable price. And then the second component to that is, again, going back to the authentic communication. I saw a lot of brands, I think, did it really, really well. You and I chatted earlier. I think Nike did well. They had a few missteps towards the end, but I think initially just the whole concept of being true, opening up a lot of their premium content for exercise or workouts, because again, that's core to their philosophy. Peloton's another one that I think did well and stayed authentic to their brand. In kind of opening up this content and speaking to the consumer that wasn't patronizing and in a way that they expected. So I think those are some of the brands that I kind of look at. And then going back to theory, again, it's just keeping that concept. We launched our summer campaign and we made sure, again, that there are still people, it was called escape in theory. So it's kind of a little bit of play on words, because we do know people are looking to travel, but you are still thinking about it. And again, it's just kind of balancing out what's right for the brand, what we think is an appropriate message for that moment in time. So I would say there's no clear answer with this dynamic between promotion and full price. But I do think as long as customers continue to be relatively receptive to it, because you are looking for good value constantly, whether it's this period or not, we want to make sure that we're showing up in the most appropriate way.
So before we jump into audience questions, and you guys have hit on this a little bit, but I want to really make sure that we take a couple minutes to dialogue. Winning right now is obviously important, and e-commerce is carrying the day, making sure that e-commerce top line is supporting maybe what's lacking from a brick and mortar perspective. But how do you think brands, retailers need to use this moment, if it's discounting pricing, if it's smart, authentic messaging, to win tomorrow? Because there's lots of studies out there that the brands that can maintain a presence, that can be a voice, that can have a cadence that resonates with the consumer in this type of market, will create that longer term value and bring the customers back when things do go back to normalcy. So maybe for Nitsan, you kick this one off in terms of learning, analytics, understanding where the customer is coming from. What can you do to pivot from that, short-term promotional win to making sure that you're corralling these same folks for the long term?
Yeah, Scott, you're asking a really good question. It's a really tough one as well, because I think it changes by brand and by company. I think it starts off with the focus on who is your customer, who are you focusing on? Because the truth is, we're reading the paper, but people in the United States and worldwide are not reacting to this in a monolithic way. And getting a handle how different segments of the population, depending on who you are targeting and who you're most focused on, is reacting to this, is going to be key, because different segments and different people are impacted by COVID in different ways. Yes, we're all in lockdown, but how people react to that, what they do is different. So I'd say, first and foremost, you want to double down and focus on your core target audience. Within that, it is about this dichotomy of, one, identifying with the problems, recognizing the issues that they're facing and the challenges that they're facing, and putting it out there. and two, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, right? But in an authentic way, helping them out, not overreaching or not doing things that look like they're serving just the moment, but rather addressing their specific needs. If it is on a price perspective, or more importantly, and I think this will be appreciated more, if you can offer the elements that are most required to them now. And listen, I'll take a maybe an obvious example, right? But as restaurants start to open up, one of the key things on everybody's mind is it going to be safe for me to eat in that restaurant? And one of the things that restaurants are going to have to do is on their website explain what are the actions that they took, how are they adhering to it, what are they doing that'll still give you a great experience and keep you safe. And there's a lot of minds that are going to have to be convinced over here. So that's a very stark example, right? Because it's on top of everybody's mind how to keep safe over the next few months. But I think that holds true for retail brands of all categories. What is it in the product and in the service that I'm offering that is most important to you right now, the customer, given your new environment, given the changes that have gone on, and how can I deliver on that?
Dorian, how do we win these customers for the long run?
Well, I think it's a mindset change for the marketers, and they have to think the long game. So, what we're going through right now is a defining moment for a generation, right? You're hearing stories that companies may go full remote, right? Google and Facebook, you don't have to come back to the office for the rest of the year, right? Life for the next year is going to be drastically different. And, marketers think about, how do I hit this quarter? And I think you have to think about, how do I take this data? How do I take the change in the dynamic of the market and my customers' needs and think the long run, and not so much about how do I survive, but how do I thrive in this environment? How do I take this opportunity to, instead of, broadcasting a message, to actually listen and have empathy, but also be realistic and give back value in a conversation, right? Brands really struggle with differentiation. This is an opportunity to be relevant to your consumer. And if you can be relevant to your consumer in the tough times, they'll stick with you. Because I don't know what reopening looks like. I don't know what normal looks like. I'm prepared for a different reality that we're all going to live through for a period of time. So we might as well start adapting and thinking differently about that mindset now.
Scott, before we jump into questions, anything you want to throw in there?
Yeah, I would just say a couple of things. I would say we've talked a lot about the outward-facing customer marketing side. I think one of the biggest areas I've looked at with my digital teams is it's kind of shown areas where we're really, really good at, but also areas where we have opportunities to improve and be more efficient. So we always think of digital and e-com as being nimble, but I think what's showed over the last 10 to 12 weeks or so is, one, working remotely. So how do you manage and lead and keep engaged? Two, how can we be more nimble with what we're doing? How do we make those quick pivots that may be asked of us? So whether it's senior leadership, whether it's our customer feedback loop or the marketplace, I think we've learned ways that we can structure and be able to pivot much faster than we could have in the past. And then the third is just really reiterating that customer first, customer experience mindset and trying to understand, because Dorian, as you alluded to, retail is going to be different. The biggest challenge now is, for better or worse, we used to have a one size fits all, but as stores are starting to reopen, we've seen a huge difference in Texas reopenings versus what may happen in California versus New York versus Florida. So all those customer expectations now have to go into, one, how do we prepare, whether fitting rooms are accessible, whether it's only curbside, what's the customer expectation? So that physical experience, and then layer on top that digital experience on how do we communicate? Do we still drive to store in some cases? And then how do we acquire a new customer in this environment? So those are the other pieces. I think it's forcing us to kind of look a bit ahead. So I would say kind of shoring up your foundational components. What can you do better to remain nimble? Because times will always change. I mean, retail was at a crossroads anyway, so there's always going to be pressure on it. So how do we react better going forward? And then just figuring out the best way to interact with our customer in a very fragmented environment going forward, at least as Dorian said, for the next year or two.
So we have about 10 minutes, and I want to make sure we leave a minute for parting shots so you each can get in the last word, but also want to check out some of the questions that we got from our audience. So let's get to that. Our friend Nick Gustin asks, in what way are you tailoring messaging for new versus repeat customers? So kind of on the back of what you just said, Scott, but and maybe you lead off, and Nitsan, you jump in if you can tie in kind of testing around those messages. But are you customizing, tailoring for the newbies that are showing up because of the discounts, because they're home, versus some of your more loyal customers?
Yeah, I would say it's more on our targeting, and when we create audiences within our, we have a customer data platform. So for us, it's building the appropriate lookalike audiences and where are we targeting those customers, and then A/B testing different creative sets. So if they are a potential new customer, it's a creative we're running, whereas in the past it may have been more oriented towards workwear. Based on that audience profile lookalike modeling, maybe it's looking at a linen shirt that you could wear on a Zoom conference, or our Zane Neoteric pant, which is incredible versatile material that you can wear and replace a denim. So that's how we're looking at targeting our customers, twofold, with the audience and the intelligence we have from existing and matching that up, and then testing different variants of creative to see what works best on acquiring new customers.
And Nitsan, how do you use Wevo to do that?
Thank you, Scott. Just before we go into the Wevo aspect of it, I just want to say this time is actually, we're talking about the challenges. The truth be told, there are many opportunities to be had over here, right? There's a reason why startups that start in the time of downturns are successful, because of all these changes. There are many opportunities to be had, and one of them is reaching out to new segments of the population that otherwise may not have been, or you haven't thought of as your core audience before. The way our customers are doing it, that Wevo gives you a capability to hone in on specific target segments. And we use over 170 criteria, so everything from demographic to sociographic to behavioral, to zoom in on a specific target audience and see how they are going to react to your new promotions, to your new product features, to your new benefit statements. And not only not only the traditional A/B testing and doing that before you go live, i.e. before you even launch it, but specifically what we do is tell them what it is you need to tweak, what it is you need to change in your offer, in your messaging for this new audience. And as we know, in the world of digital, we're creating landing pages for each sub-segment, right? We're creating messages for each sub-segment. Doing that personalization is key in this period of time. As we mentioned earlier, the response to COVID is not uniform.
Dorian, do your customers take your tech and use it one way for newbies versus their most loyal customers?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you can drive new customers and returning customers through the different communication channels, right? So if you're an existing customer, they have you on Messenger, they may have collected your phone number, may have collected your email, and they're actually doing segmentation based on which communication channel you prefer, right? But also, you could take that information and you could run promotional campaigns, retargeting campaigns, again, driving people like from Facebook ads to click the Messenger to go straight back into a Messenger bot experience. And within the bot experience, they're doing A/B with language. So while like traditional A/B has to do a lot with the website, you actually can do a lot of A/B within the Messenger platform itself and test messaging there before you even drive anyone to a website for a checkout. So you see our customers using the platform. They're very unlimited applications to it, but you see instances where you never even have to drive people to a website to have that engagement and get that feedback to know what is going to work before you go at scale.
So we have two questions that I want to get to, and one I'll just direct to Scott, and then we'll get to the last question. But interesting question came in from our friend Jarrett Smith. How do you think the role of e-com digital as you begin to reopen? What is the balance between continuing to grow that e-commerce P&L versus helping drive back to stores? Fantastic question, Jarrett.
Yeah, no, I think it goes back to, I know I keep harping on customer experience, but really looking at them both as a single channel. You have to start thinking of it holistically. I think that's where a lot of directionally retailers were trying to figure out and go down that path is what is that right balance, drive to store versus store online. So for us, we're again leveraging clienteling tools. We're leveraging buy online, pick up in store, scheduling an appointment. So components along those lines that make the customer feel safe and secure, and then we have the proper precautions taken care of. But again, giving them that option to where they can transact on their terms when they want to. So that's kind of how we're thinking of it, just giving them that fluid flexibility.
So one last question before we give everyone a minute for parting shots from our friend Mike Monroe at Madras Global. How will marketing budgets look in the next few weeks and months and even quarters? What kind of pressure will marketing departments be under to drive sales with new budgets, and how will they accomplish it? And maybe I'd love to get the full whip around on this one because it's something, Nissan, that we spoke to at the beginning or even in our pre-session. You can lead off here. Go ahead.
Yeah, it is an unknown, and I will not attempt to predict the future, not in regular times and definitely not in these times. But I will say this. We know that many marketing departments or companies have slowed down their spend now in order to wait and see. We know that others are spending just as much as before, leveraging and understanding that this is an opportunity, that customers are at home, they're listening, they're open to new ideas because of the changes going on. And this is the time to invest in order to ride the wave when things come back. And I'll say, listen, while most of us are, as consumers, many of us are focused on the here and now, successful brands are thinking beyond the next month, beyond the next year, right? And amongst our Fortune 500 companies, many are thinking what happens beyond this and how to leverage this period in order to move forward. Some of them, as Scott said earlier, are accelerating their online activities that was in motion before, but just didn't get enough love. So they're accelerating and improving their online experiences, and budgets are going in that direction. I think that pressure that existed in the process that started a few years ago of measuring the CMO by results and understanding for every dollar that they spend, what is happening with that dollar, that has not advanced to the liking of CFOs and CEOs of many companies. That pressure is now back on. Prove to me that your marketing spend is delivering. Prove to me how you can make that more efficient. So I don't know about size of budgeting markets, but the efficiency and measurement of them is definitely going to go up.
Dorian and Scott, and we're down to about a minute, so why don't you guys jump in and we'll wrap it up.
Real quickly, I would say that every dollar that's invested will be scrutinized even more. If your business was in trouble before this, I don't know if you'll survive. But if you have a healthy business, again, I think this is a time where you should change the mindset to thriving and take on the challenge. I'm optimistic, but we'll see.
Scott, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say it goes back to being nimble and being able to pivot. So everything we said holds true with the accountability and tracking of the revenue, but it's understanding what's working. Is it getting to that expected result and being able to make that decision much faster than you would have in the past so that you can pivot away from it if it's not working and go into your plan B.
So we're at time. This was fantastic. Again, I want to thank Mitsan and our friends at Wevo for helping us put this on. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Dorian. This was a great session. We look forward to having you all back and having the group back, and hope you all stay healthy and well, and we'll look forward to hosting you again. Take care, everybody.